probably than the other ones, apart from the fact of the impeachment today that took place. The case of Brazil. Brazil in the last 15, 20 years, one would have looked at it as a success story. If you look at relatively compared to its history, it came out of dictatorship in the mid-'80s, and in the late 80s there was a regional trend, in the late 80s, early 90s, after the end of the Cold War, where many countries that had been living under, we call them dictatorships, strongman states, these are the places that began an evolution of change, and Brazil was definitely on the front lines, particularly in the last 15, 20 years. It began in the 90s, I would say, is when it began its economic transformation and overhaul. And although I would say that up until recently, the most popular president that Brazil had was Lula, the reality is that the person who actually put Brazil on the right track economically was President Cardoso, who I don't think, in my opinion, gets as much credit as he ought to. He put Brazil on the right track. Lula followed in many ways, but I think towards the end of his 8-year term of office, economically, there started to be a bit of mismanagement and use of the economy for political reasons. And then we see under under Dilma Rousseff, the economy of the country, many wrong decisions being made. So much of the good work in the mid-late 90s, when she came into office around 2010, from there, I would say, began the undoing of the process. Much of it having to do with economic mismanagement, bad decisions being made. Now, her impeachment. Technically, her impeachment, we hear so many things. Scandal at Petrobras, creative accounting. The technical reason, specific reason for the impeachment was the creative accounting. Is that in the 2014 election, just before the election, she began to play with numbers to make the economy appear far more rosy than it actually was. Now, that is an impeachable crime in Brazil, but still it's subject to interpretation. Although technically it's this creative accounting issue, there's a lot more to it. Politics definitely plays into this. What I mean by politics is the fact, once again, we look at that Petrobras scandal that's basically bringing down an entire establishment of people from the private sector and the public sector. From the private sector in Brazil, one of the biggest companies in the country is Odebrecht. Odebrecht is a global construction company of operations in the US, Africa, different parts of the world. Mauricio Odebrecht was indicted and convicted. So it's not just in the public sector, but in the public sector, it's where you have probably the biggest problem that's holding the country back. And in the public sector, you see that more than half of the members of the Congress are under some kind of criminal, or being accused of criminal wrongdoing. So it starts at the top. And so when I say it starts at the top, is that the fact is that you have individuals in the public sector, in the private sector, and then what you have is that the rot seems to be everywhere. And in this case, you even have the replacement. The person who's interim president, Michel Temer, is actually also under criminal investigation. So you see, they're impeaching one president. The new person coming in is also under a cloud right now. So it seems to be a vicious downward cycle. And the question is how do you break it? And the reality of the situation is that there is no short-term fix to this. The president, if you look at the Congress is, like I said, 595 members of the Brazilian Congress, 352 facing allegations of wrongdoing. The actual number speaks words. And you see also the fact is that the current Congress, its term lasts until 2019. So you have at least another 3 years of this Congress. And in terms of of Dilma, it's going to be a 6-month process. And how exactly how do they think about removing her? She can be removed by the current impeachment process, which I guess it'll take up to 6 months. There's also a possibility within the Petrobras scandal, she's being accused right now of obstruction of justice. She's not guilty for what happened in Petrobras, but obstruction of the judicial process and trying to investigate. So that's a second potential charge she may have against her coming in the next few days or in the coming weeks. Another potential way that you could see this situation take a turn is that you'll have maybe the electoral court. It can declare the 2014 election, which she became president, to be null and void. And in that case, it'd have to be an entire new presidential election. The easiest way would probably be to diffuse the crisis at the present time is that she just resign. The likelihood of that happening, at least for now, she's committed to going through with the impeachment process. That may change also within a matter of days or a matter of weeks. One does not know. So in terms of the political scenarios, there are various options that could be at stake. But once again, the bottom line here is that due to continuing political adversity in Brazil, Brazil is still unable to realize its full economic potential. Enormous, vast wealth, and also you have a young population, and with these vast natural resources, would one say, does Brazil have a future? Yes, but until they get their political house in order, economically, there's still going to be enormous problems.